back to Sad to Savage. This is Battling Criticism. So ladies, obviously we are kind of talking about, you know, how we handle criticisms and if they're true, how do you handle like the change that comes from that? I mean, there's so much that goes into how people perceive criticisms and what can be done. You know, sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not true. Has this ever been a thing that you guys have come across? I mean, I think almost every girl has been called something or been told something that isn't true. You know, people look at you and they might say, oh, you're this, or oh, you're that, or they see something that you say online and they take it a whole different way, or they see an organization you're a part of, or they see a club or something and they just assume, oh, this girl goes to horseback riding lessons, she must totally be an animal lover and she must be this. I mean, that's just the surface level stuff. You know, I know it goes a lot deeper than that, but is this something that you've ever dealt with?
Oh yeah. I'm even dealing with it today. I mean, I'm not going to bring politics into this conversation, but currently, especially in the beauty industry, there's just a lot of stereotypes that I'm really surprised people are still following. And for example, I have very light skin, but according to the internet, I don't look Latina, which I am. My bloodline, I mean, my family were immigrants. They're from South America. My blood lineage is all tied into, you know, Portugal, Spain, even 28% Native American, but I'm not about here to, you know, share any of my 23andMe receipts. Like, why do I feel like I have to prove myself? Yeah. And I feel like that is how I'm combating it today, with that kind of stereotype. You know, who cares what I am at the end of the day? Like, that stereotype is just unnecessary, and across all platforms, whatever industry you're in, it's just really prominent in the beauty industry right now. And I feel like that is a problem that we've had, like profiling. It's just an issue.
Well, and people change. Not everyone is the same. Everyone is somewhere along this line, and I don't think that it means that we can't all be friends, that we can't all work together. You know, we just all have to have an understanding of each other. And you know, if somebody calls you something or tells you something, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I think I don't think you can take things so personal. And I think when it becomes personal is when you know it's true. You know, I think I've had people tell me things over my life, and I took the most true to be the most personal. I didn't realize, like, oh wait, they're right. I wasn't good at saying, oh wow, they're correct. And I think what I've been doing lately is giving myself a month. If somebody says or does something to me that I don't agree with, I sit back for a month and I reflect on it and I think, why are they saying this? What are they seeing that I don't realize I'm doing? You know, what's going on? And I think about it for a month, and sometimes I address it with them and sometimes I let it go, because I don't know that battling everything is necessary.
It's not. I'm a firm believer in choose your battles. Yeah. I was kind of triggered when you had said something. I remember back in like middle school, this little boy, this jerk, decided to call me a square face. That took me years. That took me years. He called me a flat square face. And it took me so many years to accept.
She took it personal.
I did. I took that personal. Years to accept my unique bone structure. I have very unique bone structure, and your adolescence, like, how do you know to love yourself? You don't. You have to figure it out. So, anyway, so you triggered me. Not a bad thing at all. I sat there for a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. So why did it bug me? Why were you so bothered by it? And then I remembered, oh, right, because you didn't know how to love yourself. And but I mean, to no fault by default. I'm naive. You're young, so it's hard. I feel for any adolescent, teenager growing, and that's a whole other topic that we can talk about. But I just, you know, being involved, parents, be involved with your kids and be open-minded. You have to. Because these are real insecurities that can follow your child into their adulthood and just ruin someone's life. So.
How about you, Coach? Has anyone ever said anything about you, like a criticism, and whether it's true or not, how did you handle it?
Well, personally, I get accused of being very masculine. I don't actually take it as a criticism. I take it more so as, thank you, I'm just being me. If you can't handle it, get out of my space, kind of, sort of. I realize that when you are an athlete or you have your own business, or you're a very dominant woman,
Yes.
guys tend to make you out like, you know,
They're trying to break you down.
They're breaking you down.
Yeah.
And I recently had that happen to me with a guy friend of mine who asked me to marry him. And he told me that I'm sacrificing my life to not be with anyone. Basically, that's what he said. He was like, you would rather be into your sport and your business and health and wellness, but you don't want to have a love life. And I was like, I think love is beautiful. I'm all for love.
Yes.
I welcome love.
Yes.
He's like, you don't know what the meaning of love is.
Excuse me?
And then he called me super official. He's like, you're playing like health and wellness is your life.
So
He's like, but you're really doing it for another.
Calling you a fraud.
Yeah.
He called me
What?
a fraud.
I would
Serious
take that
criticism.
really, to heart.
Yeah.
Why would I think that might just be someone doing that just to try to hurt you?
Yeah.
How did you handle it?
I told him, I said, you know what? I
Yeah.
really think you're an amazing person. I said, but the reality is you're insecure about you.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't love you. So you're trying to get me on that page with you so I can feel sorry. I can't see myself being with a person who's not lifting me up.
Yes, exactly.
You responded
exactly.
with light, and that
I
You
did because
did.
I said at the beginning of the conversation, I was like, I'm coming to you from a place of love and light. He's like, here you go again. You're such a unicorn. I was like, every insult, I just
Yeah.
kept giving him love. And he's like, well, you have a beautiful night. I guess we'll talk another
he's
time.
so miserable.
I was
Bye.
like, okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Oh my
So
god.
that's my antidote to come back with kindness and love.
Yeah.
I've been trying to adopt that. I had a friend of over 15 years that I'd worked with regularly. I mean, I got her jobs, given her places to live, been really close to her for a long time, criticized me on just how I view the world and how I view politics and how I view all kinds of things. My response was like, well, let's talk about it. I felt like, hey, let's have a conversation.
Have a conversation.
And
Yeah.
it was instantly, I don't need to have a conversation with someone like you. And
Wow.
it was just a complete shutdown.
Shut
So
down.
I had to
Right.
sit back and really reflect on things like, what have I said or what have I done that could possibly warrant someone just shutting down that conversation? Because I feel like when you're criticized, you should always have an opportunity to explain yourself, And I
Yeah.
feel like this is how the world kind of comes together, is
Right.
if we can talk about things, because I feel like I'm being misjudged, and I feel
Right.
like you're not. And I thought about it for my month, on my month rule, and I thought, nope, you know what? I'm not wrong. It's not
I'm
me.
with you.
I'm 100% how I feel, and I was misjudged, and you can't make somebody love you or want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right.
can't.
But
You
how
know.
you respond, I think, is really important.
Absolutely.
And I could have just blown my lid and gone on the internet, talked a bunch of crap, and I said, no, you know what? It's not meant to be,
I think I can understand her position in shutting down. Like for her, she pretty much threw a pebble, and here she is sitting in a glass house.
Yes.
Because
so
with the
easy.
criticism, I feel like it sounded like it was something that she was projecting deep within herself.
Yeah.
But in my previous experience of people attacking me or criticizing me, I shut down. And maybe that was her response. It was just shutting down.
Yeah.
Because she was projecting maybe whatever insecurity, whatever flaws or
Right.
fears.
Yeah.
I don't know what the topic was,
Yeah.
but I was very sensitive to criticism, and I don't take criticism well. And I think you can also relate to this, knowing that you're like a workaholic, you're ambitious, and you're like you're kind of like that alpha female,
Yeah.
but with a soft interior.
Yeah. Like a
It's
sappy workaholic.
Sappy alpha female with a softer core. You know what I mean? You know, it's sort of like a crap. But so that's our armor. It's just like, we show some strength in certain areas like hard work and diligence and all that. But when it came to criticism, I would crack.
Wow.
I didn't know how to handle it. I get emotional, and then I shut down because I get so flustered.
Yeah.
I can't think straight, and my voice gets shaky.
Do you ever come back around and try to have that conversation
Yeah,
later?
of course. Well, you know what? Not all the time, to be very honest. In my younger years, I always felt like I just want to avoid it.
Mm.
I'm an avoidance. I'm very passive. And I think with that is just my standpoint and how I've handled criticism.
Right.
Yeah.
And for somebody who was, criticizing you, I'm thinking she was the same way as me, because she was
Probably.
fearful of you coming back with criticism and shutting her down. So she shut herself down.
Yeah.
So I
That's a
feel
good
like,
point.
you
Yeah.
know what I'm
Very good
saying?
point.
Yeah.
So she was projecting.
If you
It's
can't,
like-
if you cannot accept or be open-minded to any criticism, don't give it. Then you have no position
Keep it
to
to
do
yourself.
it. Keep it to yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I always thought, like, sit it out for a bit.
Yeah.
And then come back around and see is this something she's criticizing me of? Am I doing that?
Right.
Is this something in me that I'm not seeing? And like, do I address that? Or is it something that she's completely misjudged and completely off the mark? And that's how I felt. I felt like this is really off the mark. And I don't ever need to go back and have that conversation again. But I think for me personally, when I get that criticism, I like to take a step back and I like to really reflect on it a little bit. And I think that's part of me getting older, because maybe when I was younger, I would just lose my cool real quick and, flip tables on people and stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I would go crazy on people.
No, but you know what? That is so true. When I was younger, when I would, when somebody would criticize me, like, other than shutting down, I do pull back. I always pull back. Even to this day, I pull back and I reflect. I'm like, okay, is their criticism true? Is there somehow that, it's very legitimate?
Right.
Or what is my role in this conflict?
Yeah.
Right? Did I participate in it? Was I wrong? So I do a full evaluation. I'm not afraid to call myself out.
Right.
Yeah.
You
I
have to.
really,
And that's good.
I am not afraid to call myself
Take
out.
accountability.
I take full
Accountability,
accountability.
101.
That is the perfect word. I take full accountability. And so when I come back, it's like, okay, I thought on it. I ingested it, and I'm like processed it. So these are my points, and this is my stance. So that's how I deal with criticism now, if given the opportunity. Because some people, I'm so impressed where they could just like bounce right back and then, have a very curt response and be so eloquent and be able to convey their message. I envy that.
Are
I'm
you a
not that
crier?
person.
Are you a
I'm
crier?
a crier. No, I'm a crier. That's why I get quiet and I shut down. They're like, I'm not going to cry in front of you. I'm not going to cry in front of you.
I noticed that some people, it's like an influx of emotion.
Yeah.
And then they come back to it. And some
emotional.
people are,
Yeah.
quick. And I feel like I'm really quick with it, but I have to take that step back and realize that not everyone's like that. And sometimes when people criticize me or give me, their 2 cents, they need a moment to step back and think about like what they said, because maybe it was inappropriate. Maybe later on down the line, they're going to be like, well, that was a little harsh, she's not so bad or something, you know what I mean? Or not. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But I think, that's kind of, it's just a really tricky situation. Now, what happens if somebody says something about you or to you that's not true at all? How do you just let it roll off, or do you address it?
Would you like to take this one?
She's like, she's like right on her tongue. She's
Let me-
I've learned when that happens, which that has happened to me both in a corporate world setting, both with my own individual businesses and everyday life, even with family. What I do is I stop, reflect. Okay, is there any validity behind that accusation? Okay, I kind of do a process of elimination, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, so what triggered this person to accuse me of something false? Now, and then at that point, I decide, do I even want to fight this or not? Do I care about the repercussions? Because again, it depends on the scenario. Like, I've worked, in groups where it's like, it's mean girl, and then it gets up to the boss, and the next thing you know, boss is kind of treating you a little bit differently, maybe saying not inviting you to as many events for some particular reason. It's like a trickle effect, and unfortunately, you're left in the dark. Like, I don't know what I've done. When it's brought to my attention, then it becomes a slippery slope. Like, okay, now I have to evaluate, do I want to stay with this group? Do I want to move on? I feel
pick
like
your battles.
So the good news is, I think the silver lining in that, when you're really evaluating it, is just kind of pulling out your truth.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? From that. And that truth is, do you still want to associate with these people
Or
Yes.
not.
who are doing this? Because why would anybody want to be around people accusing you of stuff, you know, or judging the content of your character?
Yeah, that's a really
Why-
tricky situation
Yeah.
because
Tricky.
I don't think that. I think anyone that wants to make the effort to have a conversation wants to be able to grow from it,
Right.
and they want to be able to clear the air. Because I mean, if I do something wrong and someone tells me and I'm like, oh wow, let's talk about it. Clearly, I want to get to the bottom of it, and I want to clear the air, and I want everything to be good again. If I was just, you know, a jerk, I'd just be like, psh, whatever, you're wrong, and keep on going, you know. But I think even though I know I'm not wrong, but let's have a conversation because I want you to know I'm not wrong, you know. I want there to be good understanding in the world, but I think that's also sort of part of just being a good person.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
not wanting to leave a bad
Being a good
impression,
leader.
you know.
War is probably the number one thing that comes to mind, like an actual fight, right?
Yeah.
Where it matters, where you can't leave the situation where it's kind of like a life or death.
Yeah.
Your best leaders don't have a choice. They go to the meeting and they talk down with leaders, or they sit down and talk with leaders every day that they have literally very little in common.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't agree with them clearly. They're leading very different countries with very different lifestyles, but
They
don't
sit
have
down.
a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the greatest leaders in the world. They have to be able to do that. And that's just kind of where my mindset goes. You know, I'm not a deflector. I don't run from things. And fight or flight, I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
I figure it out. So it's really
Yeah.
hard for me to relate with people who are flight. Because,
Yeah.
You know, there's
Yeah.
that moment where I'm like, why would you want to leave a situation like this?
Yeah,
Right.
let's fix this.
Let's
Let's
fix
But
it.
at the same time, the reaction I think that goes on in people's heads, literally, if you're a fight or flight, those triggers and come from different traumas, different upbringing. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
how you
Okay.
handle things, that you know, it
Yes.
has a lot to do with it. But I do think in the sense of, you know, what can you do, what can't you do when you have to, when you don't have a choice of leading a group, when you don't have a choice of taking a month to think about what you need to think about.
Yeah.
When you have to deal with something now, you literally don't have a choice but to communicate.
yeah.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I think that
Exactly.
shows true leadership. If you can sit down with someone that you think you disagree with, or
You
or
know
has
you
said
disagree
yeah,
with.
you know you
No.
disagree with, or
Yeah.
you think, or has said something about you to other people or to you. If you can sit down with that person and handle that situation like an adult, I think that takes like an enormous amount of strength, you know.
It
and
does.
it's
It does.
that's a really hard thing
Yes.
to do, and I've never. That's not something that I've been good at always.
Right.
But that's something that I want to do. And then part of me is
Yes.
like, well, maybe you should think about, you know, it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, it's a tricky situation.
Well, it's something I want to say really quick. Being a coach, you have to see both sides of everything. So I've been working with athletes, professional and aspiring athletes for years. And what I find is sometimes different people on your team, they say, oh, well, you treat this one a little bit more like you love them more than me. Like you're not giving me the same type of attention. So I learned from a mediator standpoint, you can't take sides. You have to just be
Neutral third
Mhm.
party.
neutral third party.
They teach you that in mediation.
Yes.
classes, like if you're a
And,
mediator.
Yes.
Because my background is in business management, I've always been in the management position.
Yeah.
So I took that, what I learned in business, and I put that in my coaching life because it really helps. You can't take sides. You have to be the eloquent one to say,
Yes.
hey, you know, you have feelings, but at the end of the day, this is what it is in truth right now.
Yes.
We're not, and I also have to tell them too, we can't always deal in emotions. You can't wear your emotions on your shoulder or your arm, out on your face. Sometimes I'm sitting in a business meeting, I'm with all men in my industry.
Wow.
I can't show that I'm pissed that they're down talking me, they're like mansplaining me. And I'm like, really? Really?
So you have to keep poker face.
So I have to keep the poker face and then give them that highly intellectual comeback. And they're like, oh, well, you do belong here.
They look at
Okay,
you like,
great.
okay, look at you.
Like, so sometimes you just got to kind of gauge the room and see who you're dealing with and go from there. But I wouldn't say run from it because running doesn't help.
No.
As long as you run, the problem is still there.
It is.
Yeah.
And you're going to
It
have to
is.
come back and revisit it anyway.
At
So
some
let's
point.
all just sit down. Let's hash it out.
Yeah.
And then let's go get a cocktail out.
So
Yeah.
true. It's so true.
That is
Right?
beautiful advice.
And that is great advice.
Yeah.
I love
that
I
that.
is.
struggled with that for years, and I think that's why I was so miserable, and I was always job hopping because I was always running. It was just, and I concluded I had a closed throat chakra. I couldn't speak my truth. I couldn't defend myself and say, no, you can't talk to me like that. You know,
That's the number
I bring a lot of value to this relationship. I bring a lot of value to my position as an employee. I was not able to speak my truth. I didn't know how. So growing up, just like you said, Candace, is that, you know, I was a runner, you know, and you know, and bless my parents' heart, you know, doing this the best that they could to their abilities, culturally, socioeconomically, to raise the large family that we had. But yeah, I followed suit in their habits and their upbringing of being the passive, being like, don't rock the boat, don't you know, stir the pot.
Stir the pot up.
Yeah, don't stir the pot up. So, you know, be seen, not heard type of deal. And so with that upbringing, it was a detriment to me and for the way that I handled conflict.
Yeah,
You know,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
It carried
so
into your adult life.
it carried deep into my adult
She
life.
said deep.
Deep. Long road.
But
you know,
but you addressed it.
yes, I addressed it, and now it's like I don't run. I don't
Good.
run. You know, I know my truth. I speak my truth. But that took a lot. It took a lot of willpower to get here.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think all in all, we kind of agree that the best way to handle situations, anytime someone says something about you or, you know, test your character, is to be able to be heard, to
Yes.
stand up and say,
Stand
you know
up for
what,
yourself.
no, this is not right. And hopefully everyone's given that chance to, you know, to defend themselves a little bit. You know, I
Yeah.
think it's kind of important, and I'm really proud of you guys for
Yeah,
for standing
thank
up and doing
you.
that. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our conversation. I hope that you've learned something about us, or maybe even about yourself. So if you've had a great time, please like and subscribe to our channel. We can't wait to have more conversations with you.